The dying light of 3 crimson suns cast eerie shadows across the crystalline spires of New Kepler Prime. What had once been the jewel of the Zephyrian Commonwealth now lay in ruins, its towers cracked and bleeding luminescent fluid into the poisoned atmosphere. Ambassador Zyra 9 pressed her 6-fingered hand against the emergency transmitter, her normally iridescent skin now dull with fear and exhaustion. Around her, the command center buzzed with desperate activity as her fellow Zephyrians worked frantically to maintain power to their last functioning communications array. "Ambassador," croaked General Vex 7, his voice barely audible through his damaged respirator. "The Scourge fleet will break through our final orbital defenses within the next planetary rotation. We have perhaps 6 of your human hours remaining." Zyra 9's large, compound eyes reflected the chaos around her. The Scourge had already consumed 17 worlds in their sector, leaving nothing but barren husks behind. Each planet they devoured made them stronger, their biomechanical ships growing more numerous and deadly. "The distress beacon is ready," she announced to the assembled council. "But I must warn you all, we're broadcasting on all known frequencies across the galaxy. We have no way to control who might answer our call." Elder Zix 1, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, raised her head from her meditation pod. "Better to risk the unknown than face certain extinction, young ambassador. Send the message." Zyra 9's hand trembled as she activated the transmitter. Her voice, translated into over 3,000 galactic languages, carried across the void. "This is Ambassador Zyra 9 of New Kepler Prime, broadcasting emergency beacon 77 Alpha. The Scourge biomechanical entities have breached our final defenses. Our world shield generators are failing. We are a peaceful scientific colony of 12 million souls. We have no military capabilities remaining. Please, anyone who receives this transmission, we need immediate evacuation assistance, humanitarian aid, medical supplies, anything. We have perhaps 6 standard hours before total planetary consumption. Coordinates follow. Please, help us." The transmission shot across space at the speed of light, carrying the desperate plea of an entire civilization into the cosmic dark. What the Zephyrians didn't know was that their distress call would reach Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station Bravo 7 within 43 minutes. And what they especially didn't know was that humans had recently been classified as Deathworlders by the Galactic Council, a species so adapted to violence and extreme survival conditions that most civilized races considered them barely contained. Savages. Admiral Sarah Chen was reviewing patrol reports when the translation algorithms finished processing the alien distress call. The bridge of the UES Indomitable fell silent as the message played through the speakers. 6 hours, muttered Commander James Rodriguez, her second in command. "That's cutting it damn close even for us." Admiral Chen stood up from her command chair, her weathered face grim with determination. Earth's first contact protocols had been gathering dust for decades, but the Terran Defense Force had been preparing for this moment since humanity first reached the stars. "Rodriguez, signal the fleet. Emergency formation Gamma. I want every available ship ready for FTL jump in 30 minutes. "Admiral," interrupted Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka from the communications station. "The distress call indicates they're facing some kind of biomechanical entities called the Scourge. We have no intel on their capabilities or numbers." Admiral Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. "Then we'll learn on the job, Lieutenant. It wouldn't be the first time humanity faced impossible odds." She turned to address the bridge crew. "People, we're about to make first contact with an alien species under combat conditions. Remember your training, trust your instincts, and show them what Deathworlders can do when innocent lives are at stake." The massive dreadnought shuddered as its engines roared to life, followed by the rest of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. 6 destroyers, 4 cruisers, 2 carriers loaded with fighter squadrons, and 3 hospital ships. As the fleet entered hyperspace, racing toward New Kepler Prime at speeds that would have been impossible just decades earlier, none of them knew they were about to become legend among the stars. The Scourge hive mind felt satisfaction as its biomechanical ships descended through New Kepler Prime's atmosphere like metallic locusts. Each vessel was a living organism merged with technology, their hulls breathing and pulsing with alien life. Tentacles writhed from their undersides, already extending toward the surface to begin the harvest. On the planet below, Zero 9 watched through the command center's viewing dome as the sky turned black with enemy ships. The Scourge moved with terrible efficiency. First they would drain the planet's energy sources, then consume all organic matter, and finally strip mine any useful minerals. It was a process they had perfected across hundreds of worlds. "Any response to our distress beacon?" she asked hopefully. Communications Officer Zek 4 shook his head sadly. "Nothing, Ambassador, we're alone." The building shook as the first energy drains made contact with the planet's surface. Through the viewing dome, they could see the crystalline forest beginning to dim and wither as their life force was siphoned away. That's when the scanners lit up like festival fireworks. "I'm reading massive hyperspace distortions," Zek 4 shouted, his voice filled with sudden hope. "Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL, now." 17 ships materialized in the space between New Kepler Prime and its largest moon. But these weren't the sleek organic vessels of the other galactic civilizations the Zephyrians knew. These ships were angular, brutal-looking constructs of metal and purpose. They looked like they had been built for war and nothing else. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the tactical display. The alien planet hung before them like a blue-green jewel, but it was covered in what looked like mechanical cancer. Hundreds of biomechanical ships were already in the process of consuming the world. "Jesus Christ," whispered Commander Rodriguez. "Look at the size of those things." The largest Scourge vessels were easily 3 times the length of human dreadnoughts, their living hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Smaller fighter analogs swarmed around them like antibodies around an infection. "Admiral," called out Lieutenant Tanaka, "I'm getting a transmission from the planet's surface. It's the species that sent the distress call." Zyra 9's translated voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessels, this is Ambassador Zyra 9. We didn't expect anyone to respond so quickly. Are you here to assist in evacuation? We have medical facilities standing by to accommodate various species requirements." Admiral Chen activated the comm system. "Ambassador, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress call. We are not here for evacuation." A pause. Then uncertainly, I don't understand. Are you not equipped for humanitarian assistance?" "Ma'am," Admiral Chen said, and there was something in her tone that made every human on every ship in the fleet smile grimly. "We're equipped for problem solving. And those Scourge ships look like a problem that needs solving permanently." On the planet's surface, the Zephyrian leadership looked at each other in confusion. Elder Zix 1 was the first to understand. "By the ancient stars," she whispered. "They're not here to evacuate us, they're here to fight." The Scourge hive mind turned its attention to the new arrivals. These ships registered as unknown in its vast database of consumed civilizations. Curious, the biomechanical collective sent a scouting force to investigate. 50 of its medium-sized vessels moved to intercept the newcomers. "Admiral," reported the tactical officer, 50 enemy contacts moving to intercept. They'll be in weapons range in 4 minutes. All ships, battle stations," Admiral Chen commanded. "Launch all fighters, destroyers, screening formation. Let's show these bugs what happens when they mess with someone under human protection." The UES fighters launched from their carrier bays like angry hornets, their pilots whooping over the comm channels. These weren't the careful, measured warriors of the galactic civilizations. These were humans, Deathworlders who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill things that were trying to kill them first. Wing Commander Jake Mad Dog Sullivan led the first fighter squadron straight into the Scourge formation. "All right, people. These are the nastiest looking ships I've ever seen, which means this is going to be fun. Remember, we're fighting for a planet full of people who can't fight for themselves." The space battle began with all the subtlety of a supernova. Human plasma cannons and particle beams lanced out at the biomechanical ships, scoring direct hits. But the Scourge vessels didn't just take damage, they healed it, their living hulls flowing back together like liquid metal. "That's new," muttered Commander Rodriguez. Tactical recommendations? Sir, conventional weapons are having minimal effect. The enemy vessels appear to have regenerative capabilities. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. The Scourge ships were powerful and adaptive, but they moved with a kind of predictable pattern. Like they were following programming rather than creative tactics. All ships switch to sustained fire, keep hitting the same spots, and launch the special packages. Ma'am? Rodriguez looked confused. Admiral Chen's smile was wolf-like. The nuclear torpedoes, Commander. Let's see how well they regenerate from atomic fire. The first nuclear torpedo struck a Scourge vessel amidships. The explosion was brilliant even in the vacuum of space, and when the light faded, the biomechanical ship was simply gone, vaporized at the molecular level. The Scourge hive mind paused. In all its eons of existence across all the civilizations it had consumed, it had never encountered a species that used nuclear weapons as standard ship-to-ship armaments. The concept was so foreign to its understanding that it took several precious seconds to process. Those seconds cost it 12 more ships. On the planet's surface, the Zephyrians watched in awe as the human fleet tore through the Scourge screening force like a knife through silk. Every alien species they knew fought with careful precision, conserving resources and minimizing risks. The humans fought like the universe owed them money. By the sacred crystals, breathed General Vex 7. They're not just fighting the Scourge, they're winning. But even as the first Scourge formation was destroyed, the hive mind was adapting. The main fleet, over 400 vessels, began moving toward the human ships. And these were the heavy combat forms, ships that had consumed entire star systems. Admiral. Chen saw them coming on the tactical display. Well, she said calmly, this is where things get interesting. The Scourge heavy fleet approached like a wave of living death. Each ship was unique, having incorporated technology and biological adaptations from dozens of conquered species. Some bristled with energy weapons that could crack planets. Others deployed swarms of smaller organisms that could devour a ship from the inside out. Admiral Chen stood calmly on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display. Her officers waited for orders, their faces tense but determined. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Walsh from Tactical, enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 90 seconds. I'm reading energy signatures off the scale. Some of those ships are generating power equivalent to a small star. Understood. Admiral Chen activated fleet communications. All ships prepare for Protocol 7. Commander Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Protocol 7? Ma'am, that's, aggressive even, for us. Commander, we're outnumbered roughly 20-1 by ships that regenerate damage and have been perfecting the art of planetary consumption for thousands of years. I'd say this calls for aggressive. Protocol 7 was something human military. Theorists had developed after studying every available piece of data about space combat. Most civilized species treated space battles like chess matches, careful, measured, with clear rules of engagement. Humans had taken one look at that approach and decided to play a completely different game. All ships, scatter formation, fighters, wolf pack tactics, capital ships, focus fire and advance. Show them why Earth is classified as a death world. The human fleet split apart like an explosion in reverse. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, they scattered across 3 dimensions using their superior speed and maneuverability to create confusion. The fighters swarmed the larger Scourge vessels like angry wasps, while the capital ships advanced with their guns blazing. The Scourge hive mind found itself in an unprecedented situation. The humans weren't following any recognizable combat doctrine. They seemed to be making up tactics as they went along, adapting faster than the collective could compensate. Wing Commander Sullivan dove his fighter between the energy tendrils of a massive Scourge bioship, his plasma cannons carving chunks out of its hull. This is Mad Dog to all wings. These things are tough, but they're slow to react. Hit them from multiple angles. On the UES destroyer Relentless, Captain Maria Santos was having the time of her life. Her ship danced between enemy fire, pouring rounds from its particle cannon array into anything that looked vulnerable. Captain, called her gunnery officer, We're running low on standard ammunition, Santos grinned. Switch to the experimental rounds. Let's field test those antimatter penetrators. The antimatter rounds hit a Scourge vessel and simply deleted a section of its hull from reality. The biomechanical ship, unable to regenerate what no longer existed, began to list and lose power. But the humans were taking damage too. The U.S. cruiser Valiant took a direct hit from a Scourge energy weapon and lost half its forward section. The destroyer Phoenix was overrun by smaller Scourge organisms and had to trigger its self-destruct to avoid being consumed. On New Kepler, Prime, the Zephyrians watched the battle with a mixture of awe and horror. The humans fought with a ferocity they had never imagined possible. Every loss seemed to make them more determined rather than more cautious. They're not just warriors, Elder Zix-1 observed. They're berserkers. They fight like each battle is their last. Ambassador Zira-9 was monitoring the human communications. Listen to them, she said wonderingly. They're not afraid, they're enjoying this. Indeed, across the human fleet, battle cries and jokes filled the comm channels. These weren't desperate soldiers fighting for survival. These were predators who had found worthy prey. The tide of battle began to shift when Admiral Chen made a decision that would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. All ships converge on the largest Scourge vessel. That's got to be their command ship. Admiral, Commander Rodriguez protested. That ship is 5 kilometers long and covered in defensive systems. It'll tear us apart if we get close. Rodriguez, in all of human history, has there ever been a problem we couldn't solve by hitting it harder? The commander considered this. Fair point, ma'am. The human fleet converged on the Scourge flagship like a pack of wolves surrounding a bear. The Chui, massive biomechanical vessel, unleashed every weapon it had, filling space with energy beams and living projectiles. But the humans kept coming, their ships weaving through the defensive fire with impossible skill. The UES Indomitable took point, its heavy armor ablating under enemy fire. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge as reports of damage poured in from all sections. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. Engine room reports 40% power loss. Forward particle cannon array is offline. Maintain course, Admiral Chen ordered calmly. All remaining guns target their central hub. Everything we have. The flagship's remaining weapons spoke as one, joined by every other human ship within range. The concentrated firepower was enough to crack moons, all focused on a single point on the Scourge vessel's hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the enemy ship's biomechanical skin began to crack and split. Whatever was inside tried desperately to regenerate, but the sustained barrage prevented any healing. The Scourge hive mind felt something it had never experienced before. Doubt. These creatures, these humans, fought with a combination of intelligence and savagery that defied all logic. They used weapons that could destroy worlds as casually as most species used mining lasers. They showed no fear, no hesitation, no mercy, and they were winning. The flagship's central hub finally gave way under the sustained assault. The massive vessel shuddered, then began to list as its coordination systems failed. Around it, the rest of the Scourge fleet suddenly became sluggish and confused. The smaller ships are losing coordination, reported Lieutenant Tanaka. Whatever we just hit, it was controlling the whole fleet. Admiral Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. All ships, full attack, let's finish this. What followed wasn't a battle, it was an execution. The human fleet carved through the disorganized Scourge vessels like a scythe through wheat. Nuclear torpedoes and antimatter rounds reduced biomechanical ships to scattered atoms. Fighter squadrons hunted down fleeing organisms with relentless efficiency. Within an hour, the space around New Kepler Prime was clear, except for debris and the human fleet. On the planet's surface, 12 million Zephyrians looked up at skies that were blue and clear for the first time in days. The impossible had happened. They were free. The human hospital ship UES Mercy entered orbit around New Kepler Prime like a white angel against the starfield. Unlike the angular warships that had just finished destroying the Scourge fleet, the medical vessel was curved and welcoming, its hull painted with the Red Cross of Earth's medical services. Admiral Chen had transferred her flag to the Mercy for the first official contact between humanity and the Zephyrian Commonwealth. She stood in the ship's main docking bay, wearing her dress uniform and trying to look as non-threatening as possible. Given that she had just witnessed her species casually commit genocide against a galactic menace, this was proving more difficult than expected. "Admiral," reported Commander Rodriguez, who was serving as her diplomatic aide, "the Zephyrian shuttle is requesting docking clearance." "Granted." "And Rodriguez? Make sure our Marines are present but not obviously armed. We want to look professional, not intimidating." The Marines in question, members of the elite Terran Defense Force Honor Guard, snapped to attention as the alien shuttle settled into the docking bay. Their dress uniforms were immaculate, their bearing perfect. The fact that each of them could probably fight their way through a small army was carefully not mentioned. The shuttle door opened with a soft hiss, and Ambassador 09 stepped out onto human deck plating for the first time in galactic history. She was beautiful in an entirely alien way, tall and graceful, with iridescent skin that shifted colors based on her emotional state, and large compound eyes that missed nothing. Her diplomatic robes flowed around her like liquid starlight. What struck Admiral Chen immediately was how delicate the alien looked. Not weak. There was clearly intelligence and strength in her bearing, but delicate in the way of something that had evolved in a gentler universe than Earth. "Admiral Chen," 09 said, her translated voice carrying harmonics that human throats could never produce. "I am Ambassador 09 of the Zephyrian Commonwealth. On behalf of 12 million souls, I thank you for our lives." Admiral Chen stepped forward and, after a moment's hesitation, offered her hand in the traditional human greeting. "Ambassador, it's an honor to meet you. I'm sorry we couldn't arrive sooner." 09 looked at the offered hand for a moment, then carefully placed her 6-fingered hand in Chen's palm. The alien's skin was warm and slightly phosphorescent. "You arrived exactly when you were needed," the ambassador said. "Though I must admit your methods were not what we expected." Around the docking bay, human medical personnel were preparing to transfer supplies to the planet's surface. The Zephyrians had mentioned their medical facilities were overwhelmed with refugees and injured, and the Mercy was loaded with enough supplies to treat an entire world. "Ambassador," Admiral Chen said carefully, "I hope you understand that humanity meant no offense by our direct approach to the problem. We're still learning galactic customs." 09's skin shifted to what the translation software identified as amused surprise. "Admiral, you saved our entire species. If your customs involve completely annihilating our enemies, I believe we can learn to appreciate them." As they walked through the ship's corridors toward the conference room, 09 asked the question that had been burning in her mind since the battle. "Admiral, may I ask, what kind of world is Earth that produces warriors like yourselves?" "Admiral," Chen considered how to answer that. "How do you explain to someone from a peaceful paradise that your entire species evolved by competing with everything from saber-toothed tigers to each other?" "Earth is challenging," she said finally. "Everything on our world is trying to kill, everything else, including us. We learned early that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to be very good at violence." They entered the conference room where a holographic display showed New Kepler Prime slowly healing from the Scourge attack. The planet's energy readings were stabilizing, and the biomechanical contamination was being cleared by human engineering teams. "Your people," 09 said, studying the display. "They work with remarkable efficiency. Our preliminary reports indicate you've cleared contamination that would have taken us cycles to remove." "We're good at cleaning up messes, Commander," Rodriguez observed, "usually our own." 09 turned her large eyes toward Admiral Chen. "Admiral, I must ask, when you received our distress call, did your people debate whether to respond? Did your leaders calculate the cost versus the benefit?" Admiral Chen was quiet for a moment. "Ambassador, the debate lasted about 30 seconds, the time it took for me to calculate our jump coordinates." 30 seconds. That's how long it takes a human to decide whether innocent people need help. Everything after that is just logistics. The ambassador's skin shifted through several colors that the translation software couldn't identify. Finally, she spoke. Admiral, the Galactic Council has protocols for species contact. There are procedures, cultural exchange requirements, careful introduction periods, but I think the galaxy has never encountered a species like yours. What do you mean? Most civilized species develop beyond physical violence as they achieve space travel. They become peaceful, contemplative, focused on art and philosophy. But you, she gestured at the display showing the debris field where the Scourge fleet had been. You've somehow managed to combine advanced technology with the protective instincts of a pack predator. Admiral Chen smiled. Ambassador, is that a bad thing? I'm not sure, Zyra 9 admitted. But I do know that there are other threats in the galaxy, other species that prey on peaceful worlds. The Scourge were just one of many. The implication hung in the air between them. Are you asking for our help? Admiral Chen asked directly. I'm saying that the galaxy just learned there's a species that treats extinction-level threats as a Tuesday afternoon problem. Word will spread quickly. Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. How quickly? By the time your fleet reaches Earth, every major civilization will know about the Deathworlders who came when we called for help. Admiral Chen stood and looked out at New Kepler, Prime now safe and healing under human protection. And that's a problem because, Zyra 9 said quietly, some of those civilizations aren't going to like the idea of humans in their galaxy. Some of them are going to be very afraid. The Admiral's smile was sharp as a blade. Good. Fear keeps people honest. As the human medical teams worked to heal New Kepler Prime, and the fleet prepared for the journey home, neither species realized they had just taken the first step toward changing the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The age of Deathworld diplomacy was about to begin. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime had never hosted a session quite like this one. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, harmonics, and translated speech. At the center of it all, displayed on a hologram the size of a small building, was the tactical recording of the Battle of New Kepler Prime. Counselor Thex Prime of the Andromedans spoke first, his crystalline, form-refracting light as he gestured toward the display. Honored colleagues, we have watched this recording 17 times. The tactical analysis is clear. A single fleet from this species called humans destroyed an entire Scourge armada in less than 4 standard hours. A ripple of unease passed through the assembly. The Scourge had been the galaxy's nightmare for millennia. Entire sectors had been evacuated when the biomechanical collective appeared, and now a species no one had ever heard of had casually exterminated them. They used nuclear weapons, hissed Representative Sara of the Serpentine Union. Nuclear weapons as standard armaments. What kind of species considers atomic fire a conventional weapon? Ambassador Zyra 9 stood at the speaking podium, her diplomatic immunity the only thing protecting her from the growing hostility in the chamber. Honored counselors, the humans saved 12 million innocent lives. They asked for nothing in return. They asked for nothing because they took everything, growled Warlord Krex of the Ursine Confederation. Do you not see the tactical implications? If they can destroy the Scourge so easily, what could they do to any of us? The holographic display shifted to show the human fleet. Even in the recording, the ships looked predatory, angular, built for war in a way that made the elegant curves of galactic civilization's vessels look like children's toys. High Counselor Zephys, ancient beyond measure and supposedly neutral in all matters, raised a tentacle for silence. The question before us is simple. What do we do about the humans? Quarantine their system, suggested the ethereal collective's representative, its voice like wind through crystal chimes. Contain them before they can spread. Impossible, Zyra 9 interjected. They have faster-than-light travel and the willingness to use it. They've already established contact with 17 other species since New Kepler Prime. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. 17 species in 3 months? The humans were spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. What do these other species report? Asked Counselor Thex Prime. Zyra 9's skin shifted to colors indicating satisfaction. The humans have stopped 3 pirate fleets, provided medical aid to a plague-stricken world, and helped establish trade routes through previously dangerous sectors. Every species they've contacted has requested permanent diplomatic relations. Of course they have, muttered Warlord Krex. Who wouldn't want protection from the species that treats planetary annihilation as a hobby? You misunderstand the humans. Nature, Zyra 9 said firmly. They are not conquerors, they are protectors, but they protect with a violence that our peaceful civilizations cannot comprehend. The High Counselor's ancient eyes fixed on the recording of Admiral Chen, standing calmly on her bridge as nuclear fire bloomed around her ship. Perhaps, he said slowly, that is exactly what the galaxy needs. Meanwhile on Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the briefing room of Terran Defense Force headquarters, looking at a holographic map of the local galaxy. Red dots marked known threats, blue dots indicated friendly contact, and yellow dots showed species that hadn't decided what they thought of humanity yet. There were a lot of yellow dots. Admiral, reported Colonel Martinez, head of Xenological Affairs, we're getting requests for assistance from 12 different species. Pirates, raiders, something called the Entropy Cult that apparently worships black holes, and at least 3 different slavers organizations. Slavers? Admiral Chen's voice went cold. Yes, ma'am. Apparently slavery is still legal in several galactic sectors, and they're none too happy about humans interfering with their legitimate business practices. Admiral Chen studied the map. Earth had gone to the stars expecting to find advanced, peaceful civilizations that would welcome them into a community of enlightened species. Instead, they'd found a galaxy full of predators, preying on the weak, with a political system too civilized to do anything about it. Colonel, how many ships can we have ready for deployment within the month? The entire 3rd Fleet, ma'am. 47 ships, including the new Prometheus-class dreadnoughts. Admiral Chen smiled, and it was the same expression she'd worn when facing the scourge. Good. It looks like the galaxy needs to learn some new rules. She turned to look out the window at Earth's night sky, where the stars beckoned with the promise of adventure and the certainty of conflict. Time to show them. What happens when Deathworlders decide to make the universe a better place? On the edge of known space, the message probe drifted through the void, its alien construction betraying its origin from the dark regions beyond the galactic rim. Inside its crystalline memory core was a single transmission, repeated in the languages of 100 dead civilizations. The harvest begins again. The young galaxy shows promise. We return to feed. The probe's sensors detected the radio chatter of spacefaring civilizations and adjusted its course toward the brightest signal, a small yellow star called Sol. Behind it, in the darkness between galaxies, something vast and hungry began to move toward the light. But for the first time in cosmic ages, the galaxy wasn't defenseless. Somewhere in that light was a species that had looked at extinction-level threats and decided they made interesting target practice. The ancient enemies of all life were about to meet the Deathworlders, and the universe would never be the same. The end.